Welcome to a special edition of Global Conversations. Last night, President Putin addressed the Russian Federation, the United States, and the world, decreeing that the two republics of Donbass, Lugansk and Donetsk, are now considered independent republics. My guest, a regular on the show, and my friend, Dr. Vladimir Kozin. Vladimir, my goodness, what did you think as you watched the president's speech last night?
Yes, hello, Regis. Thank you very much for your introduction. Yes, I watched President speaking late at night yesterday, and I have been waiting for the final crucial word from him, whether to recognize these two republics you have mentioned or not. But I was sure that he will recognize them as independent and sovereign states. And he did so. He immediately signed two decrees, number 71 and 72, presidential decrees, saying that the Russian Federation recognizes sovereignty and independence of each state, Donetsk People's Republic and Lugansk People's Republic. So after that, two leaders of these two republics, Mr. Pushilin and Mr. Pasechnik, and Mr. Vladimir Putin, they signed two separate treaties. The treaty is called Treaty on Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance. Three crucial words. And each leader signed the same respective treaty, and Mr. Putin did so. So what is the fate of these documents? Presidential decrees, two decrees, have been effected immediately after he signed them. Treaties should be debated, both two treaties should be debated today in the Russian lower house, State Duma, and afterwards, after its recommendation, the upper house or the Russian Senate will do the same. So the purpose is to make them effective, to put them into force. And I've heard that today, when we are talking, February 22nd, the parliaments of these two Donbass republics are also started the procedure to implement these two respective treaties. Well, I was on the seventh heaven, and my family and all my friends, because we have been waiting this wonderful, terrific event a long time ago, since the coup in Kiev in 2014, and when two republics in Donbass at the nationwide referendum conducted in each of them separately proclaimed their independence from Ukraine. But the Russian Federation did not recognize the independence and sovereignty when those referenda has been arranged, because we have been hesitating. But many people, including myself, we have been waiting this moment to arrive. It is long overdue. And lucky we are, and especially I've seen today's TV coverage from Donbass, and people there are rejoicing despite martial law announced in the Republic at night. They have been rejoicing, just fired fireworks, and with the Russian and Donetsk and Donbass banners, flags. It was a very festive moment in their life. What does it mean in practical terms? Since yesterday's evening, Moscow time, 11 p.m., February 21st, yesterday, it is Russian armed forces that will protect Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. Not only them personally, but we are also taken upon ourselves this commitment, this obligation to take care of their security, welfare, and whatnot. So they will be heavily protected. And Kyiv and its masters from NATO, accomplices of recent third Kyiv aggression versus Donbass, should understand that since yesterday's evening time, Moscow time, all persons, all armed forces, all politicians have to address, first of all, the Russian Federation. They should maintain direct ties with us, not only the people of Donbass. So people of Donbass decided that they do not want to live in this failed, unlucky, undemocratic state called Ukraine.
Vladimir, let me interrupt you just for a moment.
Please.
Have Russian troops actually moved into the Donbass region already, or is that something that will begin happening?
Before yesterday's evening, not. We have not. But since two decrees became effective immediately, as soon as President Putin finished with his signature, Russian troops can be sent directly to these republics, to their territory, not crossing the line of disengagement, separating these two republics in Donbass with the rest of Ukraine. Because actually the Donbass, the huge area, is divided by two parts. A smaller parts, I don't know in terms of percentage, but it seems to me that 1/3 of the entire Donbass area is inhabited and ruled by Donetsk and Donbass People's Republic and the Lugansk People's Republic. And the rest of Donbass, northern, western and southern part, including the city of Mariupol on the Azov Sea, is controlled by the government in Kyiv. So this question should be, this dilemma should be discussed and resolved, I think, a little bit later, not now. But in the constitution of these two republics in Donbass, when these two constitutions have been adopted separately, they would like to have the whole Donbass area in the hands of these two republics. So in Russian, it's called Luganskaya Oblast and Donetskaya Oblast, or Lugansk region and Donetsk region. So expanding the current territory of small Donbass ruled and just commanded by these two republics and extended to the administrative border with the rest of Ukraine, determined by the Ukrainian constitution. Well, but this issue is not very urgent. The most important thing we have done, or the president has done, and key ministers and two speakers of the two houses of Russian parliament, they backed this kind of decision to recognize independence and sovereignty of these two republics. It is important to outline, to stress that currently there will be no aggression. And Vesti FM radio station correspondent, who is now in Donbass, Donetsk and Lugansk regions, reported early in the morning today, February 22nd, that there was a calm and quiet across the line of disengagement drawn by the Minsk agreement. And by the way, in a presidential decree in Article 1, it has been said that the Russian Federation took into consideration expression of will of these two republics and refusal by Ukraine to peaceful settlement of the conflict in conformity with the Minsk Accord. And after that, the phrase followed, we recognized, as I said, two republics in capacity of sovereign and independent nations. And item 2, we will establish diplomatic relations. They will not be a part and parcel of the Russian Federation. No, they are separate nations. Ruble as Russian national currency will be circulated as it has been before in these two republics. So, and in a treaty, in the treaties of cooperation, friendship, cooperation, and mutual assistance, it has been said that there are 31 articles, by the way, published in Russian and in Ukraine. So we will expand our ties, our cooperation in every domain, in terms of finance, economy, cultural exchanges, educational system, etc., etc. So it's a very good moment in the history of the people of Donbass. Nobody will kill them. Nobody will torture them. Nobody will just create massive graves. Nobody will deprive them of potable water, electricity, natural gas supply, etc., etc., etc. We will protect them with all our might. Regis?
Wow. Vladimir, I have got several questions that I would like you to give a very brief answer to, because these are questions that everybody in America and people across the EU are going to ask. First of all, does this mean that the Russian Federation, speaking through their president, have really given up on the Minsk agreements because of the unwillingness of Kiev and the United States to honor them? Is that what it means? The Minsk agreements are no longer on the table.
Well, the Minsk Accord has a long time ago not on the table, because not of us, because we insisted for 8 long years to implement it. We conducted plenty of talks in various formats, Normandy, trilateral, at the OSCE, at the United Nations Organization, during telephone calls and tete-a-tete meetings between President Putin and other Western leaders, including the US President Joseph Biden. We strongly recommended and put a pressure on Kyiv. Please implement all 13 paragraphs contained in the Minsk Accord. Unfortunately, Kyiv implemented only one paragraph: exchange of prisoners of war, of those persons who were detained. Sometimes civilians have been detained. But this kind of exchange has been effected, but not, I think, in full. There are some other prisoners of war contained in the Ukrainian prisons. So we have not violated the Minsk Accord because the Russian Federation has not been and is not a signatory state, a participant in this accord. There are only 3 direct participants, legal participants, political participants in the Minsk Accord: Kyiv regime, plus Donetsk Republic and Lugansk Republic. That's all. Russia, France, and Germany are guarantor states, guaranteeing states of the Minsk Accord. But unfortunately, being in such capacity, 3 states are enumerated, failed to persuade Kyiv to honor the Minsk Accord. Mr. Zelensky, President of Ukraine, made several open, blatant statements in the public, in many, many cases, that he does not want the Minsk Accord to exist anymore. He wanted to rewrite, to produce another accord in another capital, not signed in Minsk in Belarus, and make the United States as a full-fledged participant in the future accord, etc., etc. Politically, he denied this agreement, this accord. And de facto, in reality, King's government, King's ruling elite violated this very agreement in many, many cases. When it bought huge cache of Western arms and ammunition, when it started military aggression and the policy of genocide versus Donbass, when it amassed heavy artillery and heavy weaponry very close to the line of disengagement and started shelling residential areas and social infrastructure in Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. Concentrated a huge amount of heavy weaponry, more than 100 millimeters in diameter caliber, because 100 millimeters caliber of the cannon, guns, missiles, and mortars, etc., are prohibited to be concentrated and used across the line of disengagement for both sides of this conflict. But Kyiv used 122 artillery pieces, 120 millimeters mortars, mortar fire, etc. So a lot of mistakes, a lot of violations of the Minsk Accord, and killing innocent people. In this third military operation, not too many people from civilians and military persons, citizens of Donbass have been killed or wounded so far. But look at the first two aggressions, 14,000, 14,000 civilians only have been killed in Donbass by indiscriminate Ukrainian fire. A lot of people. I have seen photographs of the two previous campaigns with a mother and child, both killed. She wanted to protect her kid by her body, but but unfortunately, she was killed as well. Just a second. I have seen the body of Anna Kurochkina. She was pleading for urgent medical assistance. Her two legs were torn off, only half of body laid on the ground. In a couple of minutes, she died because of losing of blood, etc., without two heads torn off completely, fully, till the middle part of the body, and a lot of things like that. By the way, Donbass, Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic completed a huge dossier, several wardrobes full of dossier with atrocities that Kiev armed forces and ultra-nationalist right sector, Azov, etc., committed in Donbass, in that area. They will be presented to the world community, but it's difficult to watch them. Even strong-willed gentlemen cannot see them all. We have sent this kind of dossier to Berlin and to Washington for seeing, for understanding what they have done. They canalized aggression various civilians, people that they wanted to live in peace and tranquility and to choose the life they wanted to live. Regis?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that very powerful and emotional witness, Vladimir. I have to ask you a few more questions because I think it's really important for people to understand. We started talking about the resolution from the State Duma a few days ago.
Yes.
You predicted at that time that Putin would sign it. And everybody was waiting, of course. Mm-hmm. Now, as I look back on this, and I'm wondering how you look back on it, I do not think that this was a sudden or knee-jerk reaction by Russia. I think this was very carefully choreographed. It was one of Russia's many strategic options that they have worked out and planned for some time. I don't think, and I don't think the world should think that President Putin acted alone, unilaterally, by himself to make this happen. My question to you is, do you agree that it was carefully choreographed, that Putin was not surprised by this resolution? It was well planned in advance by Putin, his national security advisors, the military, and key leaders in the Duma. Would you agree with that?
No, Regis, because it's difficult to plan any kind of recognition or signing treaties on friendship, cooperation, and mutual assistance 8 years before. 8 years before, from 2014, after Ukraine started a major military drive into Donbass.
Well,
We have been too patient. We have been waiting too much. And probably other countries would have done this kind of recognition and signing treaties immediately after the first Ukrainian aggression against Donbass and the second, 2014-2015. But we have been waiting, and we're hoping for the peaceful resolution of this conflict. Why this recognition and signing treaties with Donetsk and Lugansk took place this way? Because on the 17th of February, we have witnessed an upsurge of military involvement of regular armed forces of Kiev regime against Donbass. I have all violations of the ceasefire recorded by Organization on Security and Cooperation in Europe. They are having, as I told you previously, special monitoring missions commanded and controlled by the OSCE in Donbass, exactly in Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic. Look, on the eve, on the 16th of February, there have been recorded 591 violations of ceasefire by Ukrainian armed forces. The next day, 648. Latest violation on the 19th and 20, 1,400 violations. And in yesterday's OSCE special verification, special monitoring mission report, having data as it stood by 20th of February, they have found out together violations by Kiev regime 3,231, including 2,026 explosions. Explosions, it's a very obvious factor of attacking, of intruding, of offensive operations, because it would be unwise absolutely for the Donetsk People's Republic to conduct 2,026 explosions on their territory, blowing up gas pipeline, potable water pipes, electricity, power stations, hospitals, schools, etc., and residential areas. So Kiev made a very grave mistake. It's a beginning of a disintegration of Ukraine, I think, and many Ukrainian experts and Russian experts who are monitoring developments in Ukraine and know Ukrainian history much better than me, are predicting that after liberation of Donbass, other areas, other regions of Ukraine would express their intention to say goodbye to Kiev regime. Regis?
Wow. Well, I want to come back to the question that I asked you. I said that I thought it was carefully choreographed. I realized that they didn't plan this back in 2014, but certainly recently, maybe within the past week or even 2 weeks, this was very carefully planned. It didn't just happen, boom, like this, accidentally. To come up with pages and pages and articles of an agreement, that doesn't happen in a couple of hours. I don't think it happens in a couple of days. Plus, to get the two heads of the republic to come to Moscow and be ready to sign these things. So that's what I meant by, it wasn't just a snap decision. This was very carefully thought out, at least for several days or a week, or maybe even a little more. So I want to ask a couple of more questions. My goodness, the United States, Joe Biden has already responded. Several European capitals have responded, including Macron, including Stoltenberg. What do you think will happen now as a U.S. Western response to this decision? There's been all kinds of threats, but what do you think will happen?
It will happen the same scenario, the same outcome, the same response as it happened when the Republic of Georgia attacked South Ossetia in the year 2008. We recognized it, we repelled Georgian aggression from South Ossetia and recognized it. And after that, there was a dead silence between South Ossetian and Abkhazia borderline with the state of Georgia, with the capital Tbilisi, not state Georgia in the United States. So I think that I have to respond by a Russian folk saying, "Поезд отошел от станции, и рельсы разобрали." The train has left the station and the track, the railroad tracks have been dismantled. Too late, the USA president, the NATO leaders, too late. You just miscalculated. Instead of not inciting Kiev ultranationalist regime to conquer Donbass, you should have persuaded him not to do this kind of thing. You will destroy your authority, you will destroy your country further, and you will be trialed. Sooner or later, you will be tried for these atrocities you have committed in Donbass. You both.
Wow. Well, they're threatening sanctions. Do you think that that Biden and even the United States Senate and Congress will inflict sanctions from hell like Russia's never seen? Do you think that they will cut Russia off from the Swiss monetary system? Do you think that they will impose other severe penalties on Russia, which they're capable of doing? Do you think they will do that? And what will Russia's response be?
Regis, I have visited the White House website, official website, and I have seen executive orders signed by Joseph Biden and sent to Congress. I understood that all economic and financial sanctions President Biden mentioned in his executive order, it's on the website, in the internet of the White House. It's open for general public. Sanctions are directed against Donbass and Lugansk, Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic, not against Russia.
Just like they did with Crimea, correct?
Yeah, but probably, yes. Whatever sanctions all Western or NATO community or European community will impose against the Russian Federation directly, we will manage to overcome this kind of sanctions. First of all, they are illegal. They are politically motivated. It's a kind of revenge, but not sanctions. And by the way, we have immunity in terms of sanctions. Plenty of sanctions have been imposed against us many, many years ago, both sectoral against certain branches of our industry and agriculture and against individuals, persons, personal sanctions. So we will overcome them very easily. We are not afraid. And by the way, NATO and the European Union sanctions against us or against Donbass people, two republics, will backfire to the Western leaders. Instead of banning SWIFT banking transaction system, we have already invented our own domestic, local banking transaction system called MIR, or Peace in English. It's working. I use MIR card, Peace card. So it's a banking card, debit or credit, it doesn't matter. It's fully operational. We do not care. But do those people in the West, in the European and in NATO countries, are they not afraid of our contra sanctions against them? So no energy supplies at all, completely to the West. We have the right to do this, to make a revenge, to make vendetta. If they impose sanctions against us, we will have a legitimate right to pay back. Second, we will close air traffic route across Siberia and across the Russian Federation when a civilian or cargo passenger plane or cargo plane from the Western Europe are going to Asia and back. We will invent many, many other things that the Western community have never realized at all.
Yeah, and controlling air traffic, forbidding other countries to fly over Siberia or other parts of Russia.
We will make restrictions. There will be a huge prices on air tickets.
Yeah,
if
and
they bypass, fly over polar area or via the Indian Ocean from the south, etc. Well, it's up to them. By the way, we hate sanctions, but we have the right, as I said, legitimate right to pay back, to launch a boomerang against them. So think twice before you do something wrong against us.
Well, others have predicted, Vladimir, that even without controlling airspace and cutting off gas, that America, I should say America, because America is north and south. We should talk about the United States. It probably will crash their economy. It's been predicted because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
But if Russia did close off the airspace and cut off gas, it would cause an immediate global collapse, Western collapse of the economy, and God knows what would happen. Now, I want to get back to the agreements and the treaties that Russia has signed with the Donbass.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the Donbass now will flourish economically, culturally, historically, educationally, just as happened in Crimea, which I have witnessed with my own eyes for the last 6 years?
Regis, definitely yes. Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic will flourish. They will live in a protected environment. They will be not spending some money for military hardware because we will take this kind of burden upon our shoulders too. And educational system, supplying them with foodstuffs, medical services, whatnot. They are enjoying free travel to Russia and back, and dual citizenship is being permitted by the treaty. So Russian financial system is already existing. Russian rubles are in circulation, not Ukrainian hryvnia or euro or US dollars. Yeah. So it will be totally different life, but it will not be like a snap, like the next day or the day after tomorrow. It will take certainly time because infrastructure is needed to be rebuilt, renovated, constructed anew, etc., etc. But I think that as a hero of a certain literature, just novel said, I think it's Sellinger's room at the top. I made my choice then and there, full stop.
And in terms of the economic assistance, financial assistance that Russia has promised, this is a very important question. I know, because I know people in the Donbass who have suffered terribly. Pensioners have not been able to cross back into Ukraine to get their pensions. Will Russia now honor their pensions, just like other Russian citizens?
Yes. Yes, first of all obligations on social obligations will be also just our obligation, our commitment to them. And by the way, we're just paying salaries and pensions to the citizens of Donbass, of Donetsk and Lugansk republics. It's not a problem for us. Our agriculture is huge. All supermarkets, food stores are filled with a lot of different kind of foodstuffs, whatnot, poultry, meat, milky products, etc., etc. So, is it for us? It's not a burden to supply and to have to create a better life for 4 million residents in Donbass and these two republics. It's not a problem completely.
I think,
by the way, the number of persons who would like to acquire Russian citizenship just went up considerably high. Previously, it was 800,000, but nowadays, if you add some persons whose passports are in the processing, plus take into account applications they have submitted for Russian passport and Russian citizenship. Yesterday it was announced 1,200,000 already, but this figure will be expanded, no doubt.
Yeah, well, I think it's safe to say, to predict that just as has happened in Crimea over the last 7 or 8 years, and it's taken quite a long time to build power plants, to rebuild infrastructure, to rebuild hospitals, schools. I think that we will see the same thing happen over the next few years in the Donbass republics, both of them, because you just have to look at what happened in Crimea. It had been neglected by Ukraine all those years. And I saw that with my own eyes in 2016, where neighborhoods were dilapidated. There wasn't a single road that wasn't filled with potholes. There was problems with power, with electricity, with gas, with water. And now most of those problems, except the water, has been resolved. And hopefully someday that too will be resolved. Now, there's another shoe it's already dropped. And the other shoe is named China. How do you see China reacting to Russia's recent move? I have to believe that President Xi has known about this for some time.
Well, I have not seen any official reaction from Beijing so far up to now. Only Syria just welcomed this kind of recognition of these two republics by Moscow. But I think that Chinese leaders will also support our decision to recognize independence and sovereignty of these two Donbass republics, because the People's Republic of China are a bona fide, is a clear strategic partner of us. We just heralded in this strategic partnership a real bona fide, active, etc. Unlike in the past with the West, when at the Lisbon NATO summit in November 2010, it was the last time when we signed a declaration by using this kind of terminology, strategic partnership between Russia and NATO. So no chances nowadays. And by the way, I have forgotten to while responding to your question whether it was prefabricated and long orchestrated recognition. Look, previously, Kiev never opened the issue of regaining nuclear capabilities Ukraine had once upon a time before 1994. It was, there was a Russian tactical and strategic nuclear weapons stored on the Ukrainian soil by that time, by 1994. But since then, and after the Budapest Memorandum of the same year, we have taken back all nuclear weapons and delivery systems to the Russian Federation. But this kind of statement, Mr. Zelensky made at the Munich Security Conference recently, that he would like to get back nuclear weapons, it's nobody will accept it. And by the way, I've heard from Washington that the United States government today, even despite unlucky news about the recognition of Donbass, it's a very positive notion from Washington and from the White House. The United States of America refused to give any kind of nuclear weapons to this bloody regime.
Yeah.
And gratitude, Joseph Biden, if it really happens, if you will never give nuclear capabilities and will never deploy American nuclear capabilities on the Ukrainian soil.
Yeah, that Russia would have to react immediately. Now,
yes.
the question is, there's a question. What will the United States and Europe do? I think we've talked about the sanctions, and Russia has survived those. And with its now trade agreements and exchanges with China, Russia is very well situated to be able to ride that out. But do you think there's any possibility now that NATO in some special meeting, emergency meeting, absorb Ukraine into NATO? Do you think that's a possibility?
No, because we will resist in much stronger terms than offering recognition these two republics. We have already stated this. We will never tolerate Republic of Georgia, Republic of Ukraine to be a full-fledged members of the NATO alliance.
So let's be clear.
Warn them and offer a handkerchief to wipe the tears of Kiev and other NATO member countries who wanted to see Kiev in the ranks of North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
So Vladimir, what does it mean that Russia will react forcibly? Does that mean
we will destroy any kind of installations on Ukrainian soil by hypersonic weapons, as sometimes Israelis have done against Iraq and in Iran?
So would there be an invasion, a military invasion of troops?
It's not necessary to conduct invasion. There are some missiles and other contemporary perspective weaponry that can do this job very accurately.
Without killing people.
Without killing. We shall warn all populations, for example, in the buildings and the factories, etc., and the laboratory to leave them immediately, because in 20 minutes or 2 hours, your building will be heavily attacked.
Exactly. Just like we saw initially with shock and awe, the United States attacking Iraq, precision guided missiles into communications infrastructure so that the army did not have communications, other significant parts of the infrastructure, but only to disable the country in terms of communication and control, without harming people.
Without harming people, yes,
Yeah.
especially civilians. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we have already suffered a lot of mortal threats from NATO and from the United States.
Yes.
We will never tolerate this kind of behavior. It's a miscalculation. It's a wrongdoing. It's stupidity
Yeah.
to fight with us.
Well, I know you have another commitment coming up
Yes,
immediately.
at 12 o'clock Moscow time in 10 minutes time. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So we'll conclude this, but only for today. As
Yeah.
we watch events unfold now from today on, what the United States will do, I have to correct myself every time, and what Europe will do, individual states in Europe. This is going to be important to follow this, because it's not over and done with in terms of how the rest of the world is going to accept this. So, Vladimir, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Regis. And two remarks, two friendly advices to NATO member countries. Stop Kiev with its aggression against Donbass. Stop supplying Kiev with heavy weapons and other ammunition, etc. Full stop. And thank you for you, Regis, for your patience, for your just questions. They are straightforward, and I like straightforward questions. So let's go on with this kind of practice. It's very valuable. At least it's a kind of window of opportunity to address to the West.